Lily sat alone in the corner of the orphanage, her small arms wrapped around her legs, her head resting on her knees. The other children ran around, laughing, shouting, playing games, but Lily stayed quiet. She didn't speak much, and no one really paid attention to her. She didn't have friends, and most people didn't even notice when she was in the room. But Lily didn't mind. She had her own little world. In her notebook, she had drawn the same thing over and over again. A piano. Some drawings were big, others small, but each one showed black and white keys, music notes, and a girl sitting on the bench playing. Lily had never seen a real piano before. Only on the old TV in the common room. Every time a music show came on, she would sit close to the screen, not blinking, listening to the sound with her whole body. Her fingers would move in the air, copying the motion of the musicians. But the other kids just laughed at her, called her strange, and left her alone. One cloudy afternoon, something unusual happened. A black luxury car pulled up outside the orphanage, its windows dark and its engine silent. The children pressed their faces against the windows, wondering who it could be. Even the staff looked nervous, fixing their clothes quickly. The director of the orphanage opened the door and stepped out. From the car came a tall man in a gray suit, polished shoes and sharp eyes. He didn't smile much, but his presence was strong. He looked like someone important, like someone used to making big decisions. The director whispered to a helper, "That's Mr. Carter, the CEO of Harmonia Industries." He was famous, rich, and very private. No one knew why he came in person. Instead of just sending money like other sponsors, Mr. Carter walked through the building slowly, looking at the children. Some smiled at him, some waved. A few even tried to shake his hand, but he just nodded and kept walking. He seemed uninterested, until he passed by the back hallway. There, he saw Lily sitting on the floor sketching in her notebook, not looking up. He paused, tilting his head, and said softly, "What are you drawing?" Lily looked up, surprised, but didn't answer. She held the notebook close, guarding it like a treasure. The director hurried over. "Ah, yes, that's Lily," she said. "She doesn't talk much. She came here 2 years ago, very quiet, very sensitive. She doesn't play with others, but she draws pianos constantly. She watches piano videos all the time." Mr. Carter didn't say anything at first. Then he crouched down, looking Lily in the eyes. He gently held out his hand and said, "Would you like to play a real one?" Lily blinked, unsure if he was joking. The director laughed nervously. "She's never played before. We only have an old one in the hall, hasn't been used in years." Mr. Carter stood up, and with a quiet voice said something no one expected. "If she plays and even a little," he said, "I'll consider adopting her." The staff gasped, and the children started whispering. Did he really say that? Adoption? Just for playing the piano? Lily's heart started beating fast, her hands shaking. She had never been offered anything like this before. No one had ever asked her to do anything. No one had ever offered her a family. She stood up slowly, holding her notebook like a shield. The staff led her gently to the dusty old piano in the main hall. The children followed, crowding around, some smirking, others curious. The piano was scratched, with one broken leg and keys yellowed by time. She had seen it once but never dared touch it. Now everyone watched as she sat on the bench, legs swinging just above the ground. She looked at the keys, then looked at Mr. Carter, who stood near the wall, silent, watching. Her fingers hovered above the keys. Unsure then, very slowly she pressed one key. A dull sound came out, not very clear, but it echoed through the quiet room. Then another key and another. The sounds didn't make a real song yet, but they weren't random either. She kept going. Her eyes closed, her head tilted slightly, as if listening to something no one else could hear. A soft melody began to form, shaky at first, but growing stronger with every note. The children stopped whispering. Even the director was stunned. Mr. Carter's face changed. His eyes widened just a bit, and he stepped forward without realizing it. Lily played a tune no one recognized, but it was haunting, emotional, and filled the room with something warm and strange. When she finished, her hands stayed frozen above the keys, afraid to move, afraid to ruin the moment. Mr. Carter walked toward her, slowly, as if in a dream. He knelt down beside her again. "Where did you learn that?" he asked. Lily looked down and whispered. For the first time anyone had heard her speak. "I just hear it. In my head." The room stayed silent and no one could explain what had just happened, but in that moment, everything changed for Lily. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, someone had heard her without her saying a word. Lily sat still on the piano bench, her small fingers resting above the dusty keys. Her heart was beating fast, and her breathing was shallow. She didn't know why she had played that song. She had never practiced before, never touched a piano, and yet, the melody had come from somewhere deep inside her. Mr. Carter looked at her, his eyes full of questions he didn't ask. He stood up, straightened his suit, and said quietly, "Get her things ready." The director blinked in surprise. "You mean now?" He nodded slowly. "I'm taking her with me for a weekend visit." Let's see if she still plays when she's not surrounded by noise. Lily didn't understand what was happening. The other kids stared at her like she was suddenly special. Some looked jealous, others confused. No one said goodbye when she left with the tall man in the black car. She held her notebook tightly, her eyes staring out the window as the orphanage disappeared behind her. The car was quiet and smooth, nothing like the loud vans she had ridden before. Mr. Carter sat beside her, reading something on his tablet. But every now and then, he glanced at her with a strange look, like he was remembering something far away. After a long drive, they reached a huge white house with wide glass windows and a beautiful garden. It didn't look like a home, it looked like a dream. A maid opened the door and smiled at Lily. "Welcome, little miss." Lily had never been called that before, and she looked down shyly. Inside the house, everything smelled clean and fresh, like flowers and lemon. Then she saw it. In the middle of the living room, there stood a grand piano. It was shiny, black, and beautiful, with golden petals and smooth white keys. Her eyes lit up, and she stepped toward it without thinking. But just before she touched it, she stopped and looked at Mr. Carter. He nodded, giving her permission. She sat on the bench, her feet not reaching the ground again. Her fingers touched the keys gently like they were glass, and slowly she began to play. The same melody from the orphanage came out, but this time it sounded clearer, stronger, richer. The piano seemed to respond to her like it knew her soul. From the hallway, a woman peeked in, one of the staff members, her eyes wide with surprise. She whispered to another person, "That song, that's the tune his daughter used to play." Mr. Carter heard her but said nothing. He sat down on the couch, his hands clasped tightly together. He watched every move Lily made, every note she touched. When she finished playing, the room stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then the staff quietly clapped, not wanting to disturb the feeling in the air. Lily looked confused, unsure if she had done something wrong, but Mr. Carter stood up, walked over, and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "That melody," he said softly. "Where did you learn it?" She shook her head. "I don't know," she whispered. "It just comes in my dreams." Later that evening, Lily sat on a soft bed in a guest room. The room had pink curtains, a shelf full of books, and even a small stuffed rabbit on the pillow. It was more than she had ever imagined. She held the stuffed rabbit in her arms and stared at the ceiling. She didn't understand why this man, this CEO, had brought her here. She didn't know if she was going to stay, but she felt something here that she had never felt before. Safety. Meanwhile, in his office, Mr. Carter stood in front of an old photo on the wall. It showed a little girl with long brown hair sitting at a piano, smiling brightly. That was his daughter, Emma. She had died in a car accident 3 years ago, and after that, the piano had stayed silent. No one had played it since until today, and now, a quiet orphan girl had walked into his home and played the same melody his daughter used to play. A melody never written down, a song they used to make together, just the two of them. He sat down at his desk and opened a music box. The same song played from inside, soft and clear. He placed his hand over his heart and whispered, "How is this possible?" Then he looked at the doorway, where Lily was peeking in, holding the stuffed rabbit. "I can't sleep," she said softly. He smiled for the first time in years. "Come," he said. "Let me show you something." He walked her into his late daughter's room, untouched since the accident. Everything was frozen in time. The piano books, the teddy bears, the paintings on the wall. Lily looked around, wide-eyed, and then her gaze stopped at the small upright piano in the corner. She walked to it, touched it gently, and said, "Can I?" He nodded, not trusting his voice. She sat and played, not the sad song from before, but a different one, lighter, full of hope. It wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful, and as she played, Mr. Carter felt something breaking open inside him. Grief, yes, but also healing. Something about this girl, this music, this moment, it felt like a second chance. When she finished, she looked at him and asked, "Do I still have to go back?" He bent down, looked into her eyes and said, "Not if you don't want to." She nodded slowly, then hugged him without warning, and for the first time since Emma passed, Mr. Carter hugged someone back, without hesitation. Lily woke up the next morning in a warm bed with soft blankets and sunlight on her face. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she sat up, looked around the room filled with dolls, books and paintings, and remembered everything. She wasn't in the orphanage anymore. She was in a rich man's house, a man who had watched her play piano and brought her here. Her eyes stopped on the stuffed rabbit beside her pillow, and she smiled quietly. No one had ever given her a toy of her own before. Downstairs, the house was quiet but full of gentle sounds. Birds singing outside, a soft breeze through the curtains, and the distant clicking of keys as someone typed. She followed the sound, and found Mr. Carter sitting in a big office working on a laptop. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. Not the cold, sharp smile he gave adults, but a real smile. The kind that felt warm. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. She nodded, still hugging the stuffed rabbit. He stood up and walked to her slowly, holding something in his hand, a small golden key. "Come with me," he said, and led her down a hallway she hadn't seen before. At the end of the hallway was a double door locked for years. He used the key and slowly opened it. Lily gasped. Inside was a room filled with music. Not sound, but everything about it. There were shelves with music books, old tapes, pictures of a smiling girl at a piano, and a white grand piano standing in the center like a queen. "This," Mr. Carter said, "was my daughter's room." Lily walked slowly toward the piano, looking around with wide eyes. Everything was beautiful and untouched. Like a memory, frozen in time, she placed her fingers on the piano keys, looked at him and whispered, "Can I play here?" He nodded but didn't speak. His eyes already wet, Lily began playing the same soft melody she had played in the mansion's living room. The notes danced in the air, full of something that felt like emotion. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it came from her heart. Mr. Carter stood still, listening, his hands behind his back, his lips tight. He remembered how his daughter Emma used to sit at the same piano, playing the same tune. But there was no sheet music for it. It was a song they had made together when she was small. They used to hum it at bedtime, and she'd play it to make him smile after long work days. No one else knew it, not even his wife, who had passed before Emma did. So how did this orphan girl know the same exact melody? When Lily finished, she turned and looked at him. "I always hear that tune in my sleep," she said softly, "like someone is singing it to me." Mr. Carter didn't answer right away. He walked to a corner and opened a small wooden box. Inside was a tiny music box with a ballerina figure. He wound it up and let it play. The same melody filled the room, matching Lily's song exactly. Lily's mouth opened slightly, shocked. "That's it," she whispered. "That's the one." They both sat in silence as if time had stopped. Mr. Carter finally spoke. "My daughter used to play that. She made it up when she was 5. She said it came to her in a dream, just like you." He looked at Lily like he was seeing something impossible. Then he asked her, "Do you believe in things we can't explain?" Lily didn't answer, but she gave a small nod, as if she understood more than most people did. That evening, Mr. Carter made a phone call to his assistant. "I want her enrolled in the academy," he said. "Not next month now. Give her a piano tutor, music theory, everything she needs." The assistant was surprised. "Sir, with all due respect, are you sure?" Mr. Carter replied, "She's not just talented. She's something else." Later, Lily sat with a bowl of soup, her favorite stuffed rabbit beside her. She felt safe, warm, and full for the first time. In years, she looked around and saw photos of Emma everywhere, smiling, dancing, playing the piano. She didn't feel jealous. In fact, she felt like Emma was part of the house, still living in the music, in the air, in the keys she touched. Before bedtime, Mr. Carter came to say goodnight. He stood at the door for a moment, then stepped inside. He looked at her and asked, "Do you want to stay here longer?" Lily looked up and asked, "Even if I stop playing?" He smiled gently. "You don't have to play to stay." She hugged the rabbit tighter and whispered, "But I want to." He nodded and left the room, but stood outside the door for a long time, lost in thought. That night, as Lily slept, the music box played softly in the hallway, and somewhere in the quiet house a picture of Emma seemed to smile just a little brighter. The next few days passed like a dream for Lily. She had a new routine now, one she had never imagined before. Every morning, she woke up in a soft bed with clean clothes waiting for her. She ate warm breakfast made just for her, not shared with 20 other children. She had piano lessons in the music room, and her teacher, Miss Clara, called her gifted and a natural. Lily smiled more now, even though her smile was still small and shy. She still didn't talk much, but her fingers spoke through the piano keys each time she played. It felt like something inside her was coming to life. Mr. Carter watched from a distance, always quiet but always there. He didn't treat her like a business deal or a project. He treated her gently, like someone learning how to care again. The staff in the house noticed it too. The way his face softened when Lily entered the room. The way he listened to her music with his eyes closed, as if remembering someone far away. They all knew he was changing, piece by piece, note by note. But nothing stays secret forever. One evening, a well-dressed reporter was waiting outside the house gate. She had heard whispers from a driver who delivered food to the mansion. He told her about a little girl who played music like magic. She told her editor, and now the press wanted a story. When the maid opened the gate to receive a package, the reporter took a photo, just one, but it was enough. Lily standing at the piano, head tilted, fingers on the keys, sunlight on her face. The photo went viral within hours. The internet exploded with questions. Who was the mystery girl at the CEO's mansion? Was she adopted? A piano genius? A lost child? Some people were moved by the picture, calling her the little angel of music, but others were suspicious. Why was a powerful CEO suddenly bringing a random girl into his home? Was this real kindness or something else? Mr. Carter held an emergency meeting with his media team. "Shut it down," he ordered. No interviews, no statements, nothing. But the story had already grown too big. News vans lined up outside. The mansion the next morning. Cameras flashed every time Lily peeked through a window. She didn't understand why people were shouting her name. She just wanted to play, not be famous. Mr. Carter decided to speak directly to the reporters. He stepped outside and stood at the gate, calm and strong. "This child," he said, "is not part of any business, not part of any plan. She is here because she has music in her soul, and I chose to listen." The reporters kept pushing, asking about adoption, her background, her talent. He answered only one thing. Sometimes life brings someone into your path, and your heart makes the decision. But just when things started to calm down, a new problem appeared. A woman arrived at the house one afternoon, wearing a long coat and holding a file in her hand. She said her name was Karen Bishop, and she claimed to be Lily's aunt. The staff called Mr. Carter right away, and he met the woman in his office. She placed the file on his desk and said, "I want my niece back." Mr. Carter stayed silent for a moment, then asked, Where were you all this time? The woman shrugged. I've been busy, but now I see she's in the news and I want to take her home. The staff grew tense, and even Lily felt the change in the house. She saw the serious faces, the whispers, the sudden silence when she entered the room. When she asked what was happening, no one told her the full truth. Only Mr. Carter knelt beside her and said gently, "Some people from your past have come, and they say they're family." Lily looked confused. "But I don't know them." He nodded. "You don't have to do anything yet, I promise." The next day, a lawyer arrived to speak with Mr. Carter. The documents the woman brought were being checked, but they seemed real. If she was truly Lily's blood relative, then by law she had a right to custody. Mr. Carter felt a weight in his chest he hadn't felt in years. He had built walls around his heart for so long, and now, just when he had let someone in, the world wanted to take her away. He stood outside that evening, staring at the stars, asking questions he couldn't answer. Why Lily? Why that song? Why now? Inside, Lily sat at the piano with the music box open beside her. She played slowly, softly, her fingers trembling with worry. The notes were quieter tonight, like they were scared too. She didn't want to leave this house. She didn't want to go with strangers. This was the first place where she felt real, like she belonged. She looked up at the picture of Emma on the wall and whispered, "What do I do now?" And even though there was no answer, she felt something in her chest, a small push, a quiet strength. She placed her hands on the keys again and played the melody one more time. Not for the cameras, not for the court, but for herself, because this song was her voice and she was ready to use it. The news spread fast. People now knew Lily not just as a piano prodigy, but as the center of a custody fight. Some called it a battle for the gifted child. Others said it was just a legal mess. But for Lily, it was confusing and scary. She didn't understand why someone who had never looked for her before was suddenly here, asking to take her away. Mr. Carter tried to keep her safe from the noise, but even she could feel the tension growing in the house. The woman who claimed to be her aunt came again, this time with a lawyer. They brought papers, photos, and documents showing that Lily's mother, who had died when Lily was small, was her younger sister. She said she had searched for Lily, but the system had lost contact. Now, seeing Lily in the media, she wanted to bring her back to the family. She told the court she could give Lily a proper home, not a life trapped in a rich man's world of attention and pressure. Mr. Carter sat silently during the first meeting, his face calm, but his eyes cold. He had dealt with big business deals, stock crashes, and courtrooms filled with tension. But this was different. This wasn't about money, it was about Lily. And for the first time he realized how fragile the connection was. The paper could speak louder than love. He told his lawyer to fight back, to gather every detail, every good moment Lily had spent under his roof. "She's not just another project," he said. "She's family." Lily sat by the window that night, listening to the wind. She didn't know what lawyers did or how the court decided things. All she knew was how she felt. This place, this house, the piano, the rabbit on her bed. They made her feel safe. And Mr. Carter, though he never said much, always made her feel seen. She didn't want to leave, not again, not after finally feeling like she belonged somewhere. The next day, Mr. Carter sat down with her at breakfast. He looked tired, his eyes darker than usual. He didn't say much, just placed a small paper on the table. It was a court notice. There would be a hearing next week, and Lily would need to be there. She looked at the paper, then at him, unsure. "I have to go too?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Only if you want to." She stayed quiet for a long time, then said, "Will they ask me where I want to live?" He looked at her gently. "Yes, they will." She lowered her head, then whispered, "Then I want to go." When the court day came, the room was large and cold, with high ceilings and long wooden benches. Lily held her stuffed rabbit tightly, her fingers gripping its soft ear. Mr. Carter sat beside her, dressed in a black suit, calm on the outside but nervous deep inside. The woman, Lily's supposed aunt, sat across the room with her lawyer. She smiled, but her eyes didn't match the smile. They looked sharp, like someone who had a plan. The judge was an older man with kind eyes. He looked at Lily and said softly, "Do you understand why you're here?" Lily nodded a little. He continued, "I'd like to hear from you if that's okay. Tell me what this means to you." Lily looked down for a moment, then stood up slowly. She walked to the center of the room, holding her rabbit close. Everyone watched her, the cameras, the lawyers, the reporters in the back, and all silent. Then she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "I didn't have a home before," she said. "I only had noise and cold floors and waiting. But here, I have music. I have someone who listens even when I don't talk. I don't want to leave that. I don't know this lady," she added, pointing gently to the woman. "But I know him. He didn't promise me anything. He just let me play." The room was silent. Even the judge seemed to take a moment to breathe. Then Lily looked at Mr. Carter and said, "He doesn't need me, but I need him." Tears filled his eyes for the first time in public, and he quickly looked away. The judge cleared his throat, then said, "Thank you, Lily. That was very brave." He announced that the court would need more time to decide, but everyone could feel it. Something had changed. That evening, back at the mansion, Mr. Carter didn't say anything when they got home. He simply walked to the music room, opened the piano, and waited. Lily joined him, sat beside him, and together they played not a perfect song, not a rehearsed one, but something new, something that felt like a beginning, because in that moment, neither of them was alone anymore. And whatever the court decided, their hearts had already made their choice. The house felt quiet the next morning. Lily woke up early and walked downstairs, still holding her stuffed rabbit. She didn't hear anyone talking, and the halls felt softer than usual. She found Mr. Carter in the music room, standing near the grand piano with a faraway look in his eyes. He turned when he saw her and smiled gently, but there was something heavy in that smile. "Morning," he said, and Lily walked over slowly. She sat at the piano and ran her fingers along the keys, but she didn't play anything. "Is the court going to take me away?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer right away, then said, "I don't know yet, but I'll fight until the very end." She nodded, not asking more because she knew he meant it. Later that day, Mr. Carter received a call from the court. They had allowed one more event to take place. A private music night organized for charity. Lily had been invited to perform. It was a special event for donors, judges, teachers, and music lovers. It wasn't a competition, but it was important. Lily's performance might not decide her future, but it would show everyone who she really was. When Mr. Carter asked her if she wanted to play, Lily thought for a long moment, then she said, "Yes, I want them to hear what I can't say." The next few days were busy. Lily practiced every morning with Miss Clara, her music teacher. She tried different songs, but always returned to the one that came from her dreams, the one she played on the first day Mr. Carter heard her. They added soft notes, gentle pauses, and little touches that made the melody more powerful. Lily wasn't trying to impress anyone. She just wanted them to feel what she felt inside, and the fear, the hope, the warmth, the memories. On the night of the performance, the hall was full of people. Beautiful lights hung from the ceiling, and rows of chairs faced a shiny black grand piano on the stage. Lily waited behind the curtain, wearing a simple white dress and holding her lucky rabbit in one hand. Her other hand shook a little. Mr. Carter kneeled beside her, dressed in a black suit. "You're not here to win," he said. "You're just here to share." She nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped onto the stage. The room fell silent as she walked toward the piano. She sat, adjusted the bench, and looked at the audience. Rows of serious faces, curious eyes, cold stares. Among them sat the judge from the courtroom, some reporters, her teacher, and the woman who claimed to be her aunt. Lily didn't look at any of them. She closed her eyes and placed her hands on the keys. For a few seconds there was no sound, just silence. Then, like a whisper, the first note played. It was soft, almost too quiet to hear, But then another note followed, and another. The melody grew like a flower blooming slowly in the dark. It wasn't loud or showy, but full of emotion, pure, honest, and deep. People in the room began to lean forward in their seats, their expressions changing. Some closed their eyes, others wiped tears. The song told a story without words, a story of a little girl who waited alone, who dreamed in silence, who found music in her heart when she had nothing else. Lily's fingers moved with grace, not like a trained professional, but like someone who felt every single note. She didn't rush, didn't hesitate. She poured everything into the keys, her fears, her dreams, her longing for family. When the last note faded into silence, no one clapped right away. There was a pause, like the room had forgotten how to breathe. Then the entire hall stood up, and the applause roared like a wave. People clapped with tears in their eyes, even those who had come as critics. Mr. Carter stood backstage, his heart full and proud. He didn't care about the applause. All he cared about was that Lily had shown the world who she really was. Not just a child from an orphanage, not just a girl with talent. She was someone with a voice, and that voice came from her soul. After the performance, many people tried to speak to Lily, but she stayed close to Mr. Carter, quietly holding his hand. The judge walked over and said softly, "You have something rare, young lady. Thank you for sharing it with us." Even the woman who had claimed to be her aunt didn't say much. She looked at Lily for a long moment, then turned and left the hall quietly. Mr. Carter noticed but didn't stop her. That night, back at the house, Lily sat in her room by the window. She didn't say anything, just looked at the stars. Mr. Carter came in and asked, "How do you feel?" She smiled softly, like I finally said everything. He walked over and placed a music sheet on the table, the song she had played, written by hand. "Let's call it yours," he said, and she nodded, her eyes glowing like moonlight. In that moment, neither of them needed words, because the music had already spoken for them both. The next morning, the house was filled with sunlight, but everything felt quiet. Lily woke up later than usual, her body still tired from the performance. She sat on her bed holding the stuffed rabbit, and remembered the sound of people clapping. She had never seen so many people stand up just for her. She didn't know if it would change anything, but it had made her heart feel big and strong. Downstairs, Mr. Carter sat at the dining table with a cup of tea in his hand. He hadn't slept much either. He kept thinking about the moment Lily finished her song, how the entire room was quiet, how even the coldest people stood and clapped with feeling. It was more than music. It was truth, and it had reached everyone's heart. His phone buzzed, and he picked it up with a serious face. It was his lawyer. Calling from the courthouse, the man on the other side said, "It's done, the final hearing is today, and the judge is ready to give the decision." Mr. Carter stood up slowly, feeling a strange mix of hope and fear. "Tell them we'll be there," he said, then looked toward the stairs. He called out gently, "Lily, come down. We need to go." At the courthouse, everything looked the same. The large doors, the cold walls, the serious faces. But something felt different this time. Lily walked in without fear, holding Mr. Carter's hand tightly. She wasn't the same girl who had sat quietly during the first hearing. Now she was stronger, her eyes brighter, and her heart more open. When they entered the courtroom, the judge gave them a small nod. Everyone sat down, and the room became still. The judge spoke slowly, his voice calm and clear. "I have reviewed all the papers, spoken to both sides, and listened to the child's voice," he said. "I've watched her play, and I've seen the effect she has on others. Lily is not just a talented child," he continued. "She is a child with deep feelings, and she has found a place where she feels loved." He looked at the woman who claimed to be Lily's aunt and said, "Family is important, but love and care are what make it real." He then turned to Lily and smiled. "You said something simple but powerful, that you don't know her, but you know him. And that," the judge added, "means everything." He picked up the paper and said, "I hereby grant full custody and adoption rights to Mr. Daniel Carter." He is now Lily Carter's legal guardian and father. The courtroom stayed quiet for a second. Then there was a soft wave of whispers. Mr. Carter took a deep breath, his shoulders relaxing. He looked at Lily, who was still holding the rabbit tightly, her eyes wide. "Does this mean I can stay?" she asked in a soft voice. Mr. Carter smiled, bent down and whispered, "Not just stay, it means you're my daughter now." Tears filled her eyes, and she hugged him tight. People around them smiled, some wiping away tears. Even the judge looked down with a quiet smile. The woman who had claimed to be her aunt didn't say anything. She quietly gathered her things and left the courtroom. Maybe she had come for the wrong reasons, or maybe she had just realized Lily was truly where she belonged. But she didn't fight the decision. She simply walked away, leaving Lily with the only person who had truly hurt her. Later that evening, back at the mansion, the staff prepared a small celebration. There was cake, candles, soft music, and even balloons that read, "Welcome home, Lily." For the first time, Lily laughed, out loud, a real laugh that echoed through the halls. She danced a little with the housekeeper, played a short song for the gardener, and shared cake with Miss Clara, her piano teacher. But the best moment came when Mr. Carter gave her a small velvet box. She opened it and found a silver necklace with a tiny piano charm. "It belonged to Emma," he said. "She would have wanted you to have it." Lily didn't speak. She just hugged him again, tighter this time, like she would never let go. That night before bed, Lily sat by the piano again. She placed her fingers on the keys and began to play a new melody. It wasn't from a dream, and it wasn't Emma's song. It was her own. Something born from her heart, her story, her journey. Mr. Carter stood in the hallway, listening with his eyes closed, and he felt something he hadn't felt in years, peace. Not just because he had saved a child, but because that child had saved him too, in a way no one else ever could. The music floated through the halls like a whisper of hope. Lily wasn't just a guest anymore, or a quiet girl who played piano. She was family now. She was home. Years passed, and the house that was once quiet became filled with music every day. Lily had grown, her hair longer, her smile bigger, and her eyes full of light. She was no longer the scared little girl from the orphanage. She had become confident, kind, and full of purpose. Her name was now Lily Carter, and everywhere she went, people knew her as the girl who played her way into a CEO's heart. Mr. Carter was still busy with his business, but he never missed a single piano recital. Every time Lily stepped onto a stage, he was there, sitting in the front row with his hands folded and his heart full. She performed in music schools, charity events, and sometimes even at small hospitals. Wherever she played, people listened closely. They said her music didn't just sound good. It made them feel something deep inside. And that's what Lily wanted. She didn't want to be famous. She only wanted people to feel what she felt when she touched the piano for the first time. One day she was invited to perform at one of the biggest music halls in the country. It was a grand event with top artists, famous guests, and even people from other countries. Lily was nervous, but she knew what she had to do. She practiced day and night, but instead of choosing a popular song, she wrote her own, a melody that told her story, a story of loneliness, courage, and the family she found through music. On the night of the concert, the lights dimmed, and her name was announced. She walked onto the big stage wearing a simple white dress, holding her silver necklace with the tiny piano charm. Mr. Carter sat in the crowd next to Miss Clara and some of the staff who had raised her like their own. When Lily sat at the piano, the room went completely quiet, and then she began to play. The mine. First notes were soft, like a memory. Then the melody grew, full of strength and beauty. Every key she pressed told part of her life. The pain of being forgotten, the fear of being taken away, the joy of finding a home. Her fingers moved with grace and her eyes stayed closed. She wasn't thinking about the crowd, the stage, or even the applause. She was simply sharing her heart. When the final note faded into the air, the hall stayed silent for a long moment, and then, slowly, people stood up one by one. The entire crowd gave her a standing ovation. They didn't just clap, they cheered, cried, and shouted her name. But Lily didn't smile for the cameras. She looked at Mr. Carter and smiled only at him, because she knew deep down he had given her more than a stage. He had given her a voice. After the performance, a young reporter came to her backstage. He asked, "Lily, where did that song come from?" She thought for a second, then said, "It came from everything I couldn't say when I was a little girl." He smiled. "And who would you like to thank for helping you find that voice?" She looked at the necklace in her hand and replied, "The man who adopted my music before he adopted me." That line was shared across news channels and social media. People everywhere were moved by her story. But Lily didn't care about fame. She continued to live quietly, still practicing, still helping others learn music. She even returned to the old orphanage one day. She donated new pianos, books, and music teachers. She sat with the kids, played songs with them, and told them, "You are not forgotten." Mr. Carter watched from the side, proud and quiet as always. He had become older, his hair more gray, but his heart was more alive than ever before. Every time Lily played, he felt like Emma, his late daughter, was smiling somewhere, like her song had not ended, but had continued through someone new. At home, Lily framed the old music box. On the wall of her room, it still worked, still played the same tune, but now, beside it hung her own sheet music, the song she played that night on the grand stage. 2 songs, 2 stories, side by side, one from the past and one from the future. That night, as the stars filled the sky, Lily sat by the piano and played. Softly, the lights in the house were low. The sound of the keys was calm and sweet. Mr. Carter sat nearby holding a cup of tea, listening without saying a word. And in that peaceful moment, nothing else mattered. No courtrooms, no cameras, no noise from the world outside. Just a father, a daughter, and the music that brought them together. Because sometimes a note is more than just a sound. Sometimes it's the beginning of a family. And Lily had played the note that changed everything, forever.